All right, friends. Hello.
Hi.
Started the recording of our gathering on June the 2nd. Already June. We are in the 6th month of 2021. We are halfway through 2021. Wow. And as some of you may know, and especially if you are a follower of the teachings of Cryon, Kathleen, you and I talked about this the other day. If you're a follower of the teachings of Cryon, or you follow the teachings of Greg Braden and quite a few other people, primarily those who are in touch or understand the movement of the planets through the universe, understand that we went through what is known as the harmonic convergence. It's a period that we entered into of major shift. It's a time of lots happening, not only on the planet, but in the people, in the plants, in the animals, and everything, where energetically we are moving through a different place in the universe. We're moving through what is known as the photon belt, and it is an area of intense energies. When we widen back and look at the big picture, you know, we didn't just appear here from nothing. It wasn't a big bang and then we showed up. We're part of an intelligence, a creative source, something that is so grand and vast that our human minds cannot comprehend. However, when we're out of our human minds and we are in the mind of God, accepting the consciousness, the truth of all that is, when we move ourselves into those realms of expanded awareness, and I'm just going to go ahead and mute everybody so we don't have any background noise, especially as people come in. When we expand ourselves to have glimpses of the mind of God, and I know that's what happened to me in 2007, and that's been 14 years. Still, things about that experience are still opening up for me. My mind couldn't comprehend, especially not with that consciousness, the vastness of what God is, which means the vastness of what I am, the vastness of what all is. It's still taking me so many years, and it may continue. I expect it to continue the unfolding of what that meant, to keep going through this lifetime, if not more. I don't know, but I know that I've barely scratched the surface of what God wanted me to know, to be aware to. We're moving through a place in the galaxy, in the universe, known as the photon belt. Cryon says that it takes 36 years to get through it. And to move through that time frame, we're going to go through 2 stages, 18 years each. So if you do the math, 18 plus 18 is 36. And what that means is that 2012 was the halfway point. So we had a lot of stuff happening up until 2012. Remember, we thought the world was going to end, but that's what the Mayans were attempting to tell us. It was a start of something new, a brand new trajectory, a new era was happening, because we were moving through the photon belt. The Mayans had tracked the movement of the stars. They knew exactly where we were. We didn't know that. The Western mind doesn't study things like that, so we weren't really aware of it. But the more we understand the bigger picture, the easier it is to understand what's happening here at what appears to be, the point of consciousness that we have, as within, so without, as above, so below. So we have to understand not only what's happening in the cosmos, because it is a direct reflection of what's happening inside. And when we understand what happens inside, we have a better understanding of our place in the cosmos. So they go hand in hand. So as we began to moving from the moment of the harmonic convergence, I think that was like 1988, 89, things began to happen. And one of the biggest things that was a big marker was the fall of the Soviet Union. Without a battle, it collapsed. Well, it collapsed because it ran out of money. So that began the trajectory for things not only to accelerate, but for us to begin to expand our consciousness of what's possible. You don't have to go to war to affect change. We thought the Russians were going to destroy us. So, anyways, in 2012, we entered the second half of those 36 years, which means 18 years of the completion of the shift. We're smack dab in the middle of that. The 18 years completes at the end of 2029. So when we enter into the decade 2030, it is a decade of beginning a brand new, not a new spin, because in the middle of this trajectory, 2012, when we cross that line, we enter a 26,000 year cycle. So that was the beginning of 26,000 years. But 2029 is the completion of the first 18 years in that cycle. And it is, you have to think about it as childbirth. These 18 years is when all of what does not belong comes to the light. And when you understand numerology, again, when you begin to put all these things together, everything makes perfect sense. So, what is 2020 but perfect vision? So, this is the decade to begin to see clearly what up until now was beyond our awareness. We couldn't see it. We didn't want to see it. That was the agreement. We incarnated to not see the aspects of ourselves that are true, so that we can get lost inside of the illusion of what is not true. However, for thousands of years, many, many civilizations, humanity has gotten darker and darker and darker. So, this 18-year period that we're in now is about bringing to the light all that must be seen to say no to. Just as in childbirth, you have the baby. We've got the baby, we've got the light. We all know that we are the light of the world. But what comes with that? The placenta, the all the stuff that's inside of the woman's body that is necessary. But it's the dark stuff, it's the ugly stuff, it's the stuff nobody wants. But you can't have the baby without that. And you can't have the birth without the pain. We are moving out of the time when we need pain to birth something new, beautiful, and wonderful. It's time to let go of what is necessary, that is dark, to have the light. We are graduating to a more sophisticated way of being in the world. We are accepting our divinity, we are blending with it. But to blend with the light, we must know that the light is good. We must create a relationship with the light. We must acknowledge that what is light is what God is. And everything that has been taught to us about God, the fearful God, the vengeful God, that is what we have to release. We don't have to learn through contrast going forward. If you learn that you no longer like darkness, you can learn strictly from light, from joy, from having an experience and going, I like this, I want more. We don't have to have an experience that says, ooh, that was horrible, I don't want to do that again. We don't have to keep putting our finger in the socket to know that we don't want the finger in the socket. We can start plugging in the beautiful lights and say, oh, I love that light. I like that this socket gives me light. It gives me this type of light, that type of light. I can use this light bulb, that lampshade. We can experience all of our learning now through joy, but you cannot do that if you don't understand that joy is your birthright. The last 2 weeks, we were looking at lessons on forgiveness. Today, we will complete that section. What allows us to make the shift from darkness to light is to forgive ourselves for having put in place the obstacles that blocked our light, the lessons that came with darkness, all of the things that are not comfortable to us. See that anybody needing to, nope. All of the things that were of the darkness served us because they allowed us, because we wanted it. This is nothing happened here that wasn't by choice. We entered into this world of separation. We entered as the pure light and we descended into the darkness by choice because we could, because it is a game from the place of our full consciousness, our awareness that what we are is a child of the divine. From that place where we are grounded in the truth of who we are, there is zero fear. We are all explorers on a journey. We know that everything that we encounter, we can handle. We know that everything that happens on this human experience does not define the soul that we are. It does not. But we know that it does confine our soul. It condenses our light. It's a dimmer that turns the light down. And over lifetimes, we have to turn the dimmer up, turn the light up, and remember the light of who we are. If not, we remain in a box. We remain covered up. We have a shade, a lamp, or whatever you want to call it. We dim our light. And forgiveness is the very, very practice that is necessary to move us on that bridge, because this is a bridge. We take the bridge down, or you can call it an escalator, an elevator, whatever you want to call it. We descend into darkness. We create layers and layers and layers of forgetting the truth of who we are, forgetting it, blocking it. It doesn't make it go away. It makes us not have access to it, which is something that we have to understand. The light that we are, we just begin to forget about it. We have access to it 90%, 95% when we're born, when we come in, we're pure love. I see that in my little grandson. And then we go 99%, 98% remembering, 96, we little by little until we get to where barely we remember our light and we're operating in that, you know, 95% forgetting. But if you have a pulse, the light is operating. If you have an inkling of joy, your light is still active. If you are alive, the light is still on. But how much of the light are you accessing? Well, we make this agreement with all the other souls that are participating in this journey, which means we all enter the same way and we all descend into the insanity of forgetfulness, the insanity of separation, every man for themselves, where life, remember, we've used the word to, evil, it backwards is live. We forget to live inside of our truth. We forget to live as the light that we are, and we experience the backward side of that, which is the evilness. And evil is nothing more than veil, same letters, veil. So to live, to be evil is a veil. That's all that it is. To move from living fully connected to the light to living with a veil, which blocks the light, which makes us evil. All of that works together. And I'm so excited to see my sweet friend NASA from Ireland. Thank you for joining us from Ireland. Some of you guys know NASA. So we have to understand at a cognitive level, we need to cognize the truth. It has to become something that you believe, that you trust. Because it has to be accepted by the mind before the heart will open up. What happens to us is that in our physical incarnation, our mind gets filled with information that blocks the truth, that blocks the light, that causes us to lose trust in God, in love, in our power. And little by little, we create veils of separation. We create all kinds of ways of forgetting the truth. Well, how do you do that? You wouldn't do that if you were here by yourself. We do that in agreement with other people. We do it through the relationships that we develop, whether it's somebody that we meet one time or it's somebody that we are in relationship for our entire life, like a parent, a child. We have got to get really clear that the mess that we're in was by agreement with the entire collective. All of them, all our our brothers and sisters, divine, holy, they are, just as we are, magnificent, each and every one of us are, at different levels of forgetfulness. The ones in yellow, closer to the light, the ones in green, in the process of forgetting, the ones in blue kind of have forgotten it and are below the line. They're operating in the egoic level, no longer listening to God, but doing our own will. And then, of course, you can descend into the darkest of darkest, where you are operating in such disconnect from God that there is zero, practically zero. You can't be zero, zero, because you wouldn't be alive. Again, you have God in you, you have a pulse, but operating at 99 point something in their forgetfulness, and they are so disconnected from their source of power comes from God, that they begin to look for their source of power. Well, we begin to look for a source of power here in others, in jobs and money and status and things. But when we get really evil, our source of power is through the death of another, which is why those who enter into positions of power that are willing to go to war, they are seeking the death of another to fulfill their sense of it's like it gives them their lifeline. And you can look back, look at who takes us to war and who doesn't. This is a beautiful opportunity for us to really pay attention whenever we're quick to go to war. And by war, it's not just the taking of a life of another. War can be a war of words, a war where one gets to have power over another. Parents go to war with their children all the time. Partners go to war with each other all the time. Employers with their bosses, and employer employees, um, eh, customer service rep and customer. We go to war. Who's going to be right? Who's going to be on top? Who's going to have the final say? The winner sucks the energy of the other. That energy, the sucking of the energy of another through their anger, through their fear, through their terror. I've heard that called luge, that energy that you basically suck out of another. I don't know that much about that, so please don't quote me on that. It's just a term that I've heard. All of that, the Course in Miracles says, can only be reversed with one thing only, and it is through forgiveness. We have to realize that the love that we are was brought here for the giving of it. And when we don't give it, we have to forgive ourselves for not giving it so that we can then give it again. So the love that we are, the light that we are, gets blocked because we're in fear of those who want to take it from us. So we need to claim it for ourselves. And that is the process of recognizing that another cannot take from you what you don't, at some level, willingly give. Humanity is on the verge of a massive, um, I'm going to call it opportunity for clarity. Just as with the birth, we are about to birth the light, but we're going to have to see and go through the labor pains of that birth and see all the things that are not that we want to keep them, but we need to see them because they gave birth to the opportunity for us to be disconnected. So I want to take a moment to put us on the same page, and we're going to continue. This will be the completion of the lesson in forgiveness from A Course in Miracles. And if somebody will put this in the chat, I'd appreciate it. Lesson 134. Lesson number 134. The title is Let Me Perceive Forgiveness as It Is. So again, lesson 134. Let me perceive forgiveness as it is. What we have talked about before is that humans don't understand the meaning of forgiveness. We think that to forgive somebody is to let them get away with what they did. We're not going to forgive them. So we're not going to let them get away with that. So we hold resentment in our hearts, or we say, yes, I forgive you from a place of I'm better than you and I'm going to forgive you because without my pardon, you would suffer forever. Very egotistical, very arrogant. And humans have a very different or a very difficult understanding of what real forgiveness is all about because we believe that what was done is true and it has affected us and has hurt our soul. Not understanding that anything that is done to the body does not hurt your soul, does not in any way, shape, or form affect your soul. It cannot. It's not possible. No different than if you know H2O, the molecules of water, you can't ruin the molecules of water if you take a cube of ice and you stab it. You stab that cube of ice and break it and chop it up and turn it into a slushy all you want. It does not alter that it is still going to be H2O. So just as the physical body can be hurt, the form can be affected, it does not alter the soul. And the Course in Miracles wants us to connect with the soul that cannot be altered. We have to make peace with the fact that we are whole and complete. Nobody has hurt the eternal part of you, which means we've got to let go of all of our resentments. We got to let go of blaming others. Blame is one of the lowest energies. Being vindictive, taking revenge on other is a very low energy. If we're operating at those levels of density, of hating somebody, saying, because of you, I can't be happy. Well, guess what? What we're saying is, I'm choosing to be unhappy, but I'm not going to give myself credit for being unhappy. Instead, I'm going to blame you so that I can give myself permission to be unhappy and not have to own that it is by choice. That's all that we're doing. That's a very difficult thing for humans to accept. God knows I didn't want to accept that when I was blaming my father for all of my misery. But we have to come to the place that we realize that our thoughts create our reality. What we think about, we bring about. And if we want to free ourselves and experience our birthright, we have to birth ourselves anew. We have to resurrect ourselves from the insanity of continuing to use our powerful mind, which is the only creative part of us. Our toes do not create. Our nose, you can't wiggle it like Bewitch and create something. Our mind has to be the one that believes it. And if we believe sin is real, you hurt me, you affected me, then I cannot forgive you, which means I'm going to carry the density of my vindictiveness of blaming you for why I'm not happy, all the while not being happy because I'm blaming you. I mean, it's just that simple. I stop blaming you or blaming anybody, then my joy returns because I get myself out of that density. So the Course told us that we have got to recognize that underneath that blaming of another, there's an incredible amount of guilt. Because deep down inside, especially as you begin this spiritual journey or a mystical journey, and you begin to realize, or maybe you're in a self-help trajectory, when you begin to realize that your thoughts create your reality, at some point it dawns on you, oh, my guilt is creating my unresolved resentments, my unresolved fears. They're creating. At some point, when that ding, 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 ding goes off, you realize that you got some internal work to do to release so that you can begin to affirm the truth of who you are. But that requires courage. You got to cross the line. You've got to be willing to move from your ego into the work of self-awareness and self-empowerment. So what we read before basically brought us to the place that forgiveness is the only thing that stands for truth in this world of illusion. It's the only thing that is absolutely powerful and true because it's the only thing that unhinges us from the density and lets us rise. It's what allows us to untether ourselves, untether our soul from the density of blame, of anger, of believing another one has power over us. So many things get unraveled when we participate in the true forgiveness that the Course in Miracles wants us to understand and enter into relationship with. This is all about finding our truth, finding our power, finding God where God has always been, because the kingdom of heaven has always been within. It is about claiming our power as a co-creator in this world, co-creator with everybody. We co-created density, now we're co-creating light. That's why we're coming together in this circle to hold each other in love and in accountability, to co-creating with light, to co-creating a new earth that will not allow, you cannot take guilt there, it's too dense. You cannot experience anger, it's too dense. So we have to hold each other in loving integrity, that if you really want to stop your suffering, you got to stop blaming, because the blame is to project out there the illusion that you are doing something to me so that I don't see that I am hurting myself through the blame. When we cease to blame and begin the process of true forgiveness, all we're doing is cleaning our slate. We're undoing density. We're letting go of veils, of blocks, of the very thing that keeps us from having the very thing that we say we want, that we can't have because of you. Now, it takes total, complete personal responsibility, but it also takes looking at the beliefs that we have, that the world has told us, well, if you forgive them, they'll do that to you again. They'll take advantage of you. I know. So there's a lot of thoughts and beliefs that we have to let go of. So before we go into the reading in the course, I want to open this up and see how are you all doing? Has what I said so far resonated? Does that interest you? Can you see the value in this conversation? I want to hear from you. NASA, I want to hear from you. NASA, what has you join us today? This is so exciting to have you here with us.
Hi guys. First of all, I'm really sorry I was late. I couldn't find the link anywhere. Hello. I see a few other people that I know on there. Hi, Kat. And yeah, I just really missed you, Laina, and I missed hi Jody. I missed just the teachings of A Course in Miracles. I really haven't been studying Course in Miracles since I left the States over a couple of years ago, and I definitely feel, just things coming up for me that I just feel like I need a solid practice in my life and a bit of Laina injection. And I was like, things that I felt didn't affect me before when I first came back, are affecting me now. And even talking about resentment and all of those things. Yeah, it's just a constant practice and just remembering. And I think I've forgotten quite a lot. So I need you all.
I'm so glad you're here. So glad you're here.
I'm so glad you're here.
We'll have to add you to, if you're on Telegram, to the Telegram group, because there you can have access to the links and to conversations and ways that we're helping each other see through the illusion of what's happening in the world today. So that's very cool. Yes. Who else? Who else got some nuggets from that? And anything that you might want to share? Yes, Kat.
Myself. Well, I had been practicing this and needed to, because I felt myself not being as happy as I want to be, and I know that's it. And so I find myself with anxiety and kind of waking up with it some days. It's like, oh, no. So I find myself more sitting down and inviting myself to be one with God, to inviting myself to be the conversation of God, and know that I am a God being and a divine, and it's very, very helpful for me to do that and go back and forgive myself for I don't have a lot of that left to do, and yet I'm still in some questions about my relationship with my daughters. So it's been trying, which I don't want it to be. So I'm using this. I'm just saying this really hits home for me, because I truly have been going to Source and inviting Holy Spirit and God to guide me. I'm asking them to guide me. I'm asking them to show me the way, to give me the thought, the word, the action, so that I create the world of light and love, not worry or fear or whatever else, which is anxiety, and it's all fear-based. We certainly, you drill that into our heads. So I really appreciate this. It's a reminder, and I don't follow Cron or Greg Braden, so I think I might be good to look into some of that. Anyway, I love that we reiterate often that forgiveness is the key. So I thank you so much for that, and I'm using it pretty daily in my life. Daily, just going to Source.
Yeah, I do too. It's a daily thing. It's an hourly thing. Sometimes it's a minutely thing. Because we have to remind ourselves that we have forgotten that we are the essence of God itself. So every single time we're in disempowerment, we're in blaming, we're in shame, we're in not enoughness, we're in fear. We have to forgive ourselves for forgetting that all of that happens because we wanted to experience it. And it's when we're sick and tired of experiencing fear that we go, oh, well, let me stop doing that to myself. All right, you don't have to forgive yourself anymore, because now you remember not to do that. So when we entertain thoughts, God knows they come into my mind, fear of money, fear of this, or whatever it might be, forgive ourselves for forgetting that thought is only in my mind because I've given it permission to be there. Nobody can put thoughts in your mind and make you believe them. We are picking up thoughts that we receive and decide, okay, yeah, that's true because grandma said it, or the government said it, or the teacher said it. And we need to take power first over our mind so that we can feel empowered to shift the world that we're experiencing. So thank you so much for sharing that. Anybody else before we go on to the Course in Miracles reading? Just unmute yourself if you want to share.
Yeah. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I hear you. Thank you, Kristen.
The idea of forgetting, agreeing to forget why we're here, because our learning happens by the fact that we're having to remember that we are connected to Source through our own learning. And I'm reminded about often in some real hardships, like war happen and people get killed or maimed, or there's often the saying, if there was a God, how could God allow that things to happen to children, or all the things that are happening, that no compassionate God would allow that sort of thing to happen? But the sense of it, the mirroring of a parent and a child, and a child is going through a fever or a hardship, the parent is there to the degree that the parent can help, but they can't take away the hardship of a fever or a condition that the child is going through, but they can lessen the burden, putting something on the forehead, bringing an ice pack, or whatever nurturing, especially if the child asks for help. So, I feel the asking for God's help, as one learns that there is a force greater than ourselves, lessens the burden, and God is there to care in that way that we have our experience. So, I don't think God, some people say God doesn't care. I think the caring is like a parent wanting us to learn our lessons through the journey that we're going on. So I just found myself being reminded about that process, that the presence of the force is always there, and the guidance is there in people that come to us to help us when we ask. We just have to be mindful and observant of the help is available around us. So yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. The Course in Miracles taught me something that I hadn't learned anywhere else, to the degree that the Course not only teaches it, but also explains the mechanics of it so that one can actually apply it into our lives. And it is this concept that we are in the mind of God. So God is energy. It's infinite intelligence. It's infinite potential. It can be anything and everything. And in its infiniteness, we have use of that intelligence. So the Course in Miracles taught me two very important things. One, we're in the mind of God, which means we're a thought. We're being imagined. Just as in the Bible, it says that we were created in the image of God. God imaged us, imagined us. So not only are we being imagined by God, number one, so we are energy. That's what a very hard concept for humans to understand, is that this physical world is not physical. It appears to be physical, just as when we have dreams at night and we imagine animals in our head, we imagine bombs going off in our head. They're not real, but they feel real. So this external world is no different than the dream world that takes place in our mind. So this father figure, mother figure, has created us by imagining us. That was lesson number one. We're in the mind of God. Lesson number two for me was that when we cease to believe that this is real, we cease to need to experience the reality, the perceived reality of separation. So God does not create horrible things. It doesn't, because it's loving. It has just given us power that we are using. I'm not going to say wrongly. It's not wrong to use your power to create destruction. There's nothing wrong with that, because God's not judging it. But it is a wrong use of power when you realize that what we're hurting is ourselves, because we're interconnected. We're the one energy. So to hurt another is to hurt the self. So not only are we non-physical, we're pure energy, imagine, but we also are one energy, that whatever I do to you, I do to me, which again is part of the power of the forgiveness, as the Course teaches it. So when a child is hurting, and a parent is lovingly getting the cold compress or the Tylenol to reduce the fever, the parent is doing, as Jesus taught, doing to the other what it would like the other to do to it. That compassion is experienced when we understand unconditional love. Conditional love, on the other hand, is the source of all suffering, because it says, I'm only going to love you if you meet this condition. And we think that God is a conditional lover. Well, you haven't been good children on the planet, so I'm going to send you, the famine, or I'm going to send you the war, I'm going to send you whatever. So we've got to correct our belief that anything is happening that we, number one, don't have power over, and number two, that another can do to us, whether it's God, whether it's our neighbor, whether it's our parent or the president. So your comment is really wonderful, because we have to activate a sense of compassion like a parent has for a child that is hurting. And while we do that, we have to cultivate a relationship with the God that wants to help us, wants to assist us in ending the suffering, but it can't help us end the suffering until we stop projecting the suffering outside of ourselves by understanding that we're all one energy. And what I'm doing in my field is affecting all of it, which means that's where the projection comes from. If I think I'm not good enough, I have to have people show up and prove that to me, because this is a world of cause and effect. It's a world of mirrors. We're in a hall of mirrors so that we can have an opportunity to see what we believe so that it can feel real. So great comment. Well, let's get into what the Course is saying about forgiveness. So we're in lesson 134, and that got put up there so that everybody can see it. So thank you so much, Kathleen, for writing it. Lesson 134 in Course in Miracles, and the lesson title is Let Me Perceive Forgiveness as It Is. So we're going to go to paragraph number 8. So the strength of pardon is its honesty, which is so uncorrupted that it sees illusions as illusions, not as truth. So the pardon here is where we decide to pardon ourselves. We decide to pardon another. When we're operating with what the Course wants us to understand about forgiveness, we're honestly saying, I am forgiving this illusion that is happening. The illusion is that somebody can hurt a child of God, but if you're eternal energy, you cannot be hurt. So the mind, to understand the Course in Miracles, needs to, in a way, split itself. Recognize that we are receiving information about our eternal, non-physical self. Our God imagined us. It's all imaginary. So we're basically dealing with a dream, like you would with a dream in your mind. You're accepting, okay, there wasn't a real tiger in my head last night. It didn't bite my head off. It felt that way. So we're dealing at the level of consciousness of imagination, and we're dealing at the level of projection of form. So I had the experience of the tiger, biting me, eating me. Now I'm going to deal with the physical aspect of it. So I'm going to pardon an illusion. And a tiger could not have eaten me and destroyed the essence of who I am, because it's eternal. So your mind has to accept that your eternalness is your truth, but you're pardoning the experience in physicality. So we have to get really clear. We're pardoning something that has happened, that is an experience that does not alter our eternal truth. And that requires a very sophisticated, very mature spiritual awareness. You have to really know that you are spirit. It has to go beyond mental information. Oh yeah, I'm energy, and I'm no. You got to believe it. You got to trust it. You got to know it. And the only way that becomes true is because you decide it is true. And you begin to look at everything from that lens. You look at the physical as an illusion. It has no power over me. It feels that way, but it doesn't ultimately have power. So what's happening to the block of ice? Somebody is chopping, taking a ice pick and breaking up the block of ice. That does not affect the molecules of the water. H2O does not get affected just because you poke it. You poke the ice, that's an experience. Somebody hurts you, that's an experience. The essence of who you are, those molecules, H2O, that you are imagined, never gets affected. So you've got to feel for a while like you're going crazy. Oh my gosh, they hurt me, they hit me, they beat me, they stabbed me, they shot me, but it actually didn't affect the truth of who I am. The mind that can accept those two things is going to live inside of a paradox that is the doorway to freedom. Because when you can then separate the form, physicality, from the content, the essence of who you are, you then begin to align your connection to the source of who you are. Then you begin to really get to know what God is. God is that which gives us the opportunity to imagine a physical experience, even to the point of experiencing pain. But when we have the death experience, none of that is true. None of that affects our eternal self. So the strength of pardon is its honesty, which is so uncorrupted that it sees illusion as illusion, not as truth. It is because of this that it becomes the undeceiver in the face of lies, the great restorer of the simple truth. The simple truth is we are energy, powerful beyond measure. The deception that we are fragile, finite beings that can be easily affected by something external. That we got to get really clear. Not one of us, not even a baby, is powerless, is weak, is without connection to the mighty creative source of all that is, that each and every one of us is accessing to create our life experience. So by its ability, once you understand the pardon of forgiveness, according to the Course, by its ability to overlook what is not there, it opens up the way to truth, which has been blocked by dreams of guilt. Deep down inside, everybody carries guilt. The guilt that says, oh my God, I did this to myself. All of this was done self to self. I did it because I wanted to have an experience of separation. I did it because I wanted to see what it would be like to deny God as the presence of love in my life. It's just a choice. It's a choice that we can make because God says you can imagine anything you want, but no matter what you imagine, no matter how bad it gets, it doesn't move you out of where you are, which is in my mind, and it doesn't alter that you are eternal. So again, we gotta be able to sit with the paradox of nothing physical really affects that which is non-physical and eternal. And those of you who are students of Abraham Hicks, you know what I'm talking about, because that's all that Abraham teaches. You know, get in that vortex, get on that high flying disc, whatever words they are using to get us to understand that we have a non-physical energy, that it is our guidance system. If we don't get distracted by that, the egoic ideas that attempt to distract us from the truth of who we are. Next sentence, number 4. Now are you free to follow in the way your true forgiveness opens up to you? For if one brother has received this gift of you, the door is open to yourself. What this means is that if we can forgive one person, not an easy one, I'm talking about a tough one, like I had to forgive my father, like some of us have to forgive the president, or forgive Hitler, or forgive the doctor that maybe made a mistake, forgive the babysitter that let our child get hurt, forgive the ex that maybe did something not nice. If we can forgive something that we thought was really horrible done unto us, in the process of pardoning and stating, you know what you did was part of an experience that is physical, but it didn't affect who I really am. In the recognition that what you are is eternal and cannot be affected, you come to know what God is a little bit more. You come to know your true power a little bit more. That shift in perception causes a miracle, an activation of truth to begin to move you from a low frequency of shame, blame, guilt, and vindictiveness. It rises you to the level of forgiveness. Look where forgiveness is. It puts you more in harmony with reality, with God's reality. It gives us the opportunity to open the door to who we really are. We cannot know what we are without practicing the power of forgiveness that states, it's okay, I'm not going to blame because nothing happened to me. Can you feel the resonance of that? Just bring anybody to mind, and any person you want to bring to mind, and hold whatever it is that you think they did to you in your mind, And I want you to separate whatever was done to the physical level of you, the form. Yeah, that happened. You experienced it. But your soul was never touched, never affected. Can you feel a relief, a release, a recognition of your power? That part of you, that soul, that essence wasn't affected? If you walked around with that, they did this to me and look how it's damaged me, to acknowledge that there's a part of you that never was damaged is a big deal. It's a big step. It's an important recognition of a power that we hold that is how we access the power of God, the loving power of God that the Course wants us to understand is available to us. And once you do this with one, our work is to do it with all so that nobody is responsible for what happens over here, and we can claim all of our power back. I want to check in to see if anybody had any experience with that, just shifting, even though we did it pretty quickly. I want to know that anybody experienced a shift just by doing that little bit. If you did, just unmute yourself, please.
I did a little bit, and
Hey,
it felt,
Laina.
hey, so when I shifted into the forgiveness and released that and got in touch with my soul, it felt expansive. I felt light, free, and just felt expansive instead of the dense, heavy, holding on to that resentment and anger. But I felt that I literally did feel a shift of just it felt very expansive.
So that description that you gave is so beautiful, because with every blame that we have placed on another, our soul gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and it's like it atrophies. It's like we put it in prison inside of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And every bit of forgiveness, like we let the soul out of prison, out of the ego-made prison. We let it out and it feels expansive. And then comes another judgment and we put it back in. So that's why that takes a lot of practice. So beautiful. Thank you for that share. Wonderful description. So paragraph 9 says, there is a very simple way to find the door to true forgiveness and perceive it open wide and welcome. We have got to be willing to allow forgiveness to be welcomed in. When you feel that you are tempted to accuse someone of sin in any form, and remember, sin is nothing more, that person missed the mark. That person is not doing what we thought that person should do. Or you. Any kind of sin is nothing more than a judgment. And whether, again, it's in ourselves or anybody else. I'm so glad you're back, Nessa. And this is going to be recorded, so you'll be able to have the recording later. So when you feel that you are tempted to accuse someone of sin in any form, do not allow your mind to dwell on what you think he did or she did, for that is self-deception. What was done does not matter. Does not matter. That has to do with physicality. Remember, you're not your physical self. You are the consciousness that chose to have a physical self. So we got to go to the place of power, which is the place of cause, not the effect of the body, but the cause of the body is a mind that wishes to have a physical experience. You got to train your mind to think that you now want to have a powerful physical experience, empowered, where you hold your truth of who you are. Don't be deceived by others have power to make you less than what you are. You bring yourself into correction in your mind. Ask instead, would I accuse myself of doing this? That's a really powerful question. Would I accuse myself of being a horrible person? No, I don't want to accuse myself. I accuse everybody else. Okay. So if I don't want to accuse myself of being a horrible person, Why am I doing unto others what I wouldn't want them to do unto me? You know, Jesus 2,000 years ago said such simple truths. You got to love your neighbor as yourself. Do unto others as you like them do unto you. If you're not going to accuse yourself of being a horrible person, when you accuse another of being horrible, you put in your mind that horrible people are possible, which means you're canceling out that God said, no, everything is love in its consciousness. So either everything is love and consciousness, as God says, or horrible people can be real according to you, which of course is a righteous thing that the ego does. And in the arrogance of, yeah, I know how bad they are, you're ignorant to the truth that nobody can be bad. Nothing can be bad if God said it is not. So we've got to get really clear as we move to the place of self-forgiveness. We've got to ask ourselves, like, am I going to accuse myself of that? And the day comes that you don't want, you don't want to keep accusing yourself of anything because you're removing all that guilt. What we're seeing in the world is a result of people operating at various levels of consciousness, most below the line, which is egoic, which has to do with pride, which has to do with blame, with judgment, with shame, with guilt, with vindictiveness. And everything that is happening out there is happening in our physical experience because at some level we wanted it there. So we have to come to the place of not wanting it there anymore, and only by forgiving it and not seeing it as having power over us does it begin to diminish, because then we stop attracting that. The frequency up here cannot resonate with the frequency down here. So we're moving ourselves out of the denser frequencies through the process of forgiveness. That's why you got to cross the line with forgiveness. You got to enter into the realm of consciousness and not physical form. Physical form is what the ego operates from. Money, form, status, where it's always somebody else's fault or ourselves. You know, that's what a victim does, blames itself. That has to be let go of. Do I want to keep accusing myself of this? This is a very mature question on the spiritual journey. When you decide you no longer want to accuse yourself of anything else, you will stop blaming others for it, because you will know that it is your mind that makes it so. And in our desire to not feel it here, as within, so without, it begins to diminish from your experience. Doesn't go away in the world, because there's 8 billion people projecting. So you can't get rid of all of that because it's being projected by somebody. But you move it out of your experience, so it stops showing up in your world. So the people that cheater, that liar, they stop showing up in your world if you won't accuse yourself of that. Because if you accuse yourself of it, they show up out there for you to forgive them, so that you forgive yourself for forgetting that they have no power over you. That's how the ego works. I project out there what I need to remember that is not true. Stop believing it ceases to be true. It ceases to be out there. I know that's a hard concept to really accept, but that's how this world gets projected. So sentence or paragraph 10. Thus will you see our alternatives for choice in terms that render choosing meaningful, and keep your mind as free of guilt and pain as God himself intended it to be, and as it is in truth. We need to give ourselves alternative choices. If I am not going to blame myself for that, what do you want to believe about yourself instead? That alternative choice is more in alignment with the fact that God created you powerful. And God wants you to be free so that you can project out a world that is based on the truth of what God is, which is love, a world of kindness, cooperation, collaboration, compassion. God wants us to extend love, but doesn't punish us for blocking it. Isn't that amazing? That's what a real conscious parent does. Does not shame us, does not blame us, is not going to judge us. There is no such thing as hell, only in our mind. That creator is waiting for us, like a patient parent, for us to grow up and stop acting like brats. And the only way you can act like a brat is if you think you've got it all figured out. I know everything. Well, that's the process of humbling ourselves enough to see what a powerful mind we have, start using it correctly, and it gives us the alternative choices to begin to project a world that is loving and kind for everybody. So it is but lies that would condemn. Our ego is lying to us, which is why we condemn others, and that condemns us to a life of suffering. In truth, is innocence the only thing that there is? We're all innocent children imagined by God acting like bad children. Well, if you know that God's not going to punish you and you have a powerful mind that creates what you no longer like, stop with the creation of what you don't like. Stop making it a reality. Get yourself back into kindness and compassion. Now, if you are kind and you stop blaming people, you go out into the world being the change you want to see in the world, because you will attract vibrationally necessary. It's just part of physics. The resonance of that which validates for you that level of consciousness. And doesn't mean it happens overnight, because you got to clean up your karma. So you can decide, okay, I'm going to be forgiving. And you think that you're only going to attract forgiving people. You're going to attract everything that needs to be forgiven. What's happening right now in the world is that everything that needs to be forgiven by those of us who now are clear that we have the power to forgive is rising into our conscious awareness for us to say, nope, you're no longer my reality. Government, it's not true that you have power over me. No, you don't. Medicine, establishment, education system, religious system, nope, you do not have power over me. I'm no longer afraid. You're making up stories. You're telling me what you want me to believe. I'm not going to believe it, because I now know the truth. All this is imagined. You're no more physical than I am. You're just an experience in my physical journey, but you have no power over me. When we cease to have fear of the government or the police or the bombs, when we're no longer afraid of that, we then can do something to stop the insanity from proliferating, because we cease to give it power over us. And that is the very power that Martin Luther King Jr. and Gandhi and Jesus exampled for us. They weren't afraid of being killed, and they were all killed. They were not afraid of being killed because they knew that they were non-physical. When you know you're non-physical and you cease to have fear of death, you begin to act as if you're powerful and you want to create the reality that you want. And all three of those men, and many women have done that too, knew that love was the only way. Love is the only answer, but it has to start in here. I love myself too much to continue to hold the frequency of hate and blame and guilt, because it lowers my vibration. I don't like living in that lowered vibrational state. And right now I'm in the process of shifting to yet another level for me. And I'm sitting in just more and more, God, what would you have me do? And that's easier for me now because my mind's not thinking I need something external to make me happier. And my happiness and my joy and my truth and my peace, I want to know what God wants me to do, because now I know that I've completed a stage of the work that God wanted me to do thus far. And now it's shifting. But I need to get clear. I'm not trying to figure out what am I going to do. I'm waiting for the instruction so that I can be used as an instrument for God's love and peace to be spread on the planet. So this last couple of sentences here. So in truth is innocence the only thing there is. Forgiveness stands between illusions and the truth, between the world you see and that which lies beyond, between the hell of guilt and heaven's gate. When we forgive ourselves for having forgotten how powerful we are, and we forgive them because they forgot, they know not what they're doing, they forgot. We give ourselves the permission to really begin to tap the realm of infinite possibilities, of infinite creativity, of joy. And it's a place where you don't have guilt or shame. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You don't carry that. It's not about you anymore. It's about being in service to the greater good of all, being in service to the all that is. And speaking of that, I was inspired primarily because of this lesson, I'm going to do a 6-week class on Monday nights, and it is all about understanding holy relationships according to the course, understanding the role of forgiveness. And 6 weeks, every week, we're going to forgive a specific aspect. Um, it's not just people. We're going to forgive specific things that we've done, specific beliefs that we've had, specific authorities that we've given power to. And it's going to be very, very deliberately focused on experiential practice. Yes, we'll use the course. And students, if you're participating, you have to read the course before the class, because that we're not going to be reading it like we do it here. And I'm going to start that in June 21st on Monday nights for 6 weeks. It's going to be a short, concentrated period. But with what's coming, and we don't learn how to forgive, and we don't learn how to create those holy relationships, which is where we recognize everybody is a holy brother or sister, we are not going to have the most important tool to help us deal with the insanity that is taking place in this 18-year window, of which we still have 9 years to go. Between now and the end of 2029, we're going to continue to see things surfacing that, if you're not prepared to forgive it, you are going to be scared by it. You're going to be terrorized by some of the stuff that's coming if you're not grounded in how powerful as a collective we have been in creating things that are not comfortable. Hey, Vern. Let's unmute you there, brother.
Good morning.
Good
Or I
morning.
guess it's good afternoon now.
Oh, yeah.
I'm having video challenges, so you're going to have to put up with that scary picture of me. As I've been listening this morning, I've really I'm dealing with it for myself personally right now. As we become more aware of all of this, and we're taking responsibility to deal with it from a personal level, total 100% ownership about what's going on around me, thus impacting me. I found it interesting because you said that you spending some time now asking what you should do next. You're asking for guidance. And that means some of that will be action steps on the physical plane, I'm assuming. And here's where the quandary is that once you become aware of the true paradigm, which we really live, which we really function, there should be no reason for us to take any actions at all. As a matter of fact, taking action is actually invalidating the level that you are functioning at. And this is a tough paradox. It really is. This is an area that you and I've had some private conversations around this as well. But so side by side, as people are doing this work and taking themselves to the highest level they possibly can based on their awareness, that because we are still functioning in a reality of pros and cons and all the stuff that's out there. Everything is changing. We know that, but there's got to be a place, and this is what I'm dealing with. And it goes back to I went back and did some more reading over the weekend on our founding fathers, and how the country was created, and on the personalities that were involved in it, and what they had to do, even what some of their belief systems were, and then also how they had to step up on a physical level to allow us to be sitting here right now, talking as we are right now, having this type of conversation. If those people would not have stepped up, and I mean on a physical level, we would not have had the opportunity to even get to this point. So there's got to be some way, some blending that occurs. And I go back to, I think, Christo, I remember I was talking about martial arts. And if you go back and remember that the Shaolin priests in particular are ones that I was very interested in because they learned martial arts so they could harm anybody or push what they wanted on anybody or anything like that. But they learned the martial arts as a way of taking care of themselves and others on a physical level. In other words, there was going to be some physical activity going on, even though they had attained a certain level of consciousness. And this is the area that I think is very tricky, because there is a great avoidance right now, especially in the spiritual community. Okay, I'll use quote marks around it at this point in time, that nothing has to be done. In other words, this is all an illusion. And as long as I'm aware of what's going on and I accept all of it for myself, I just need to stay in that space. Well, this is where I'm having the issues at. Now, I think that the intention and the strategies that will be used can come from one of two directions. They can come from fear, or they can come from awareness. So I can sit in a house with a flood coming, and I can sit there basically with a flood on the way, and I can say, well, I don't have any fear because nothing can harm me, nothing can hurt me. I just sit there and the flood's coming. Well, some people will say, well, if you start doing something, then your fear of something happened to you, right? You start moving around, maybe get yourself to a higher level, or take some action steps to address the flood that's coming. Or you can say, no, from an awareness level, it's quite obvious that I created this scenario. I accept the scenario, but how do I address the scenario now? In other words, how do I interact with what I've created at the highest level? How can I bring in my level of understanding, my level of awareness in the choice-making process, coming from that space, still taking physical action versus taking physical action from the egoic fear-based, but still having to take physical action. And so I'll put that on the table, because I dropped a big bomb there. I know that, but it really is where a lot of people are at, because there are lots and lots and lots of classes out there right now, lots of Zoom sessions going on all over the world. And I've tapped in on a lot of them. And a lot of them are addressing, like you're basically doing, that you're addressing, you got to have ownership yourself. You got to, get to the point where you take total freedom, total responsibility, those type of things. But I have not seen anything with that, the blending of the spiritual connection that you're making with everybody, with the physical, the patriotism that's necessary, in a sense. I'll put it at that level. So I told you, I'm working on, I want to be a conscious patriot. That's the level that I want to play at. And sometimes when I start thinking about what do I need to do, there's a part of myself that says, oh, now you're sliding back into defense. Now you're coming up. What are you going to do if they do that? All that stuff starts coming up, and then I feel guilty. And then I go back and try to go back to, okay, but, understand what you are, who they are. I understand all of that. But until we can integrate all of the teachings that we're being exposed to on a day-to-day level, a day-to-day hour level, as we interface with what we've created, there's got to be a blending there. There's got to be a way to say, if I see somebody harming somebody else, I can step back and say, well, they created that. Or I can step back and say, this is what's going on. I see it. What do I need to do? Ask myself on my inner level, what do you need to do? And step might be just to go out there and stop that from happening however I need to do that. This is a quandary for me. And I'm going to, I deal with it every day. I spend probably a couple hours every day just trying to think things through. And I end up doing both. I end up preparing for things. And then I say, well, but now how can I implement this at the highest level? How can I take the actions that I'm contemplating taking from the highest level? Mm-hmm. And that's the challenge I'm having.
Well, it's a beautiful challenge, and it's a challenge that happens when we are shifting, when we are between the egoic world and the world of alignment with God and soul, spirit, whatever you want to call it. We go through that quandary. God knows I spent many years in that same space, and it's just part of the journey. because the actions that must take place, and here's the important thing about action. Action is a physical embodiment of a commitment to stop or start something. And that means we're moving energy in one direction or another. So that physical embodiment, some of us are going to be called to participate in that. Whether it was the founding fathers, those who took action to write documents, those who took action to, use the bayonet or whatever weapon they were using at those times.
And remember, we just went through Memorial Day. I just spent yesterday dealing with everything I dealt with as a result of Vietnam and everything that I went through. I just went through all of that again, and all the lives that have been sacrificed in a sense all this time. It's very hard for me to just set that aside and say, okay, I understand that from a big picture level. But if those people would not have done what they did, we wouldn't be having the opportunity of even doing what we're doing. And that's the part that, again, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no,
it's right there. It's raw.
It is
really raw.
It is very raw. My grandfather served in the military. My father served. My nephew is serving. He's 20 years completed, just enrolled for another 4.
Laina, I'm responsible for several of the names that are on that wall. Yeah. It was my orders that I helped cut that sent many of those people that are on that wall in DC. I am personally responsible for being active in creating the teams.
And this is
this is a personal thing. It's not just,
This is where that awareness, the level of forgiveness that the Course wants us to practice comes in. Our mind has to be cleared first. Any action taken that comes from a mind that is confused creates the wars, creates the revenge, creates the perpetuation of the same problem that we keep doing, expecting a different result. The reason wars keep happening is because in the ego realm, it's a pendulum. It swings. We swing from the pleasure of the win of being the victorious in the battle to the pain of the deaths of the ones who were left not only on the battlefield as a dead body, but also the carnage, the destruction of the villages, the towns, the economy. There are so many things that when we take action from our ego will cause a cause and effect that is going to be repeated. There is no way around it. It repeats because the lesson wasn't learned. That action taken from love, action taken to stop the crazy person who hijacked the bus, to go there and stop because it's for the greater good of all. Not because you want to hurt that person for what they did, but because you want to stop the hurting of anybody else. The action of participating in government, of putting forth a bill that changes things, laws, whatever it might be, the action of staying home, nursing a sick child, the action of going to work, the action of prayer. It's an action. It is an active participation when it is inspired. What we're doing is, and we've heard this so many times, inspiration is spirit moving through us into action. The action is necessary because we have to prove to ourselves that in this physical world, we can action with love. We can take action with kindness. We can take action with compassion. Most of us think that compassionate action is feeding the homeless. Compassionate action is writing a check. God knows I've done both of those things. But compassionate action is also to be proactive, even if it means that somebody possibly could get hurt. Because if you've got to enter into an area, a riot or whatever, and you've got to stop somebody, maybe you've got to shoot somebody that comes into your home that is attempting to hurt somebody. This is where our mind has to be really clear. While we are in physical form, we are playing out the roles of physicality.
What we need to do is have conscious strategies. In other words, every strategy that we might have come up from the ego viewpoint, to stop back and say from a different level. Now, how would spirit address this? You're still going to take action, but how are you going to come from the highest level? How can you address it from the highest level? And that's the muscle I'm working on right now.
It is
That's the
going to
muscle I'm
be,
trying to exercise right now.
and beautiful that you are so clear and deliberate, because it is going to be for the greater good of all. That does not mean that there's not going to be some carnage. It does not mean somebody may not get physically hurt. The greater good for all is a correction in the direction that we're going. So if we, and by the way, we are never going to take action against people who are aligned with source. You don't have to take action to make them stop what they're doing. They're moving in a trajectory that is to higher levels of consciousness. We're taking action against those who are pulling in the direction of density to correct them and bring them upward. We probably won't get to this today, and I'm going to recommend that everybody continue reading this particular lesson. But in this lesson, there is a segment here. I probably won't be able to find it. Oh yeah, here we go. So today we practice, this is paragraph 14. Today we practice true forgiveness, that the time of joining be no more delayed. When we forgive ourselves, we are joining with others, that we are participating in the shifting of trajectories. For we would meet with our reality in freedom and in peace. Our practicing becomes the footsteps, lighting up the way for all our brothers who will follow us to the reality we share with them. We have to take action to bring our brothers and sisters back into the light. We have to take action. We have to now, but let me just say this about taking action. You only take the action that you are inspired to take. It is not following the orders from somebody who says, okay, we'll take up arms. We're going to go riot because of what they did to us. There is no revenge whatsoever. No revenge whatsoever. There is only the understanding that those who are called to provide correction, redirection, are going to bring about with a mind that is clear, this behavior is not okay. Take the action to sue somebody. That behavior is not okay. Brother, I love you. I know you can do better. What you did was not okay. Shooting so-and-so was not okay. Robbing, stabbing was not okay. So for you to find your way back into the light, we're using the systems that we have in place. But this is a highly personal experience. The decision is not that you are making a decision to take action, is that you are making a decision to align your will with God's direction. If it calls for action that is experienced on the outside, you will know it. You will feel no guilt about picking up that gun. You will feel no guilt about walking into that brawl on the streets. You will feel zero guilt because you will be on a mission from God, like the Blues Brothers said. You will have it inside of you, a very clear direction, that when you follow that, guilt goes away because there is a knowingness that it is the next appropriate action for the redirection of the trajectory humanity has been in. The current system has been taking us down and down and down into further disconnection. The more deaths, the more carnage, the more hunger, the more abuse of power, the more oppression. It is pulling humanity into such incredibly deep levels of dysfunction, disconnection, and mayhem. That has to shift. It has to shift. How does it shift? As we have heard here, you practice this true forgiveness. It says true forgiveness. And you join with God, saying, God, Father, Source, whatever you want to call it, what would you have me do? What is happening is not okay. First, I forgive myself for having projected. Where have I done that? Where have I been murderous? maybe this life, maybe a past life. We've got to know that everything that is outside came from the inside, because everything is a projection. So what do I need to heal in myself? Because that is a mirror. Have I murdered somebody, this life or past life? Have I used my words to murder them? Did I talk horribly to them like they were worthless? Did I bash them in my own mind? You correct that inside of you, and now you will be a vessel that will be used. You'll be an instrument for God's peace. And some of the most powerful beings on this planet created actionable experiences because they were listening to a source that was sending them to where they needed to go to shift things. And there are many people in our military. I know my nephew is one of them, that they are there to serve the greater good of all. Yes, some of them are doing things that they know they shouldn't be doing, and many of them leave. Many of them are the whistleblowers. So there is a consciousness that is arising because we're in the middle of that photon belt. We entered 2012, incredible energies that are bathing this planet with a sense of knowingness that we can't continue to go down. We must shift and rise. We must move into the higher realms of consciousness. Why? Because our practicing this shift in consciousness, our practicing becomes the footsteps that are lighting up the way for all of our brothers and sisters who will follow us to the reality that we share with them. So when somebody can hear, I had to shoot that person that was coming at me, because if I didn't stop them, they were going to hurt my children. In my heart, I forgive him or her for coming into my home and doing that. I forgive myself for taking their lives. But I had to do what I had to do because I felt it was in the greater good of those 4 children, my wife, my husband, whatever it might have been. Or maybe it's just your own life. I felt that I am here. There's more for me to do here in this world. And I needed to make sure that I remain. So I did in self-defense, but I forgive myself for having taken their lives, and I forgive them for what they did. There is a consciousness that creates a balance internally about every life being sacred, about every being being divine and holy, that allows us to do what needs to be done without needing to make excuses, without needing to guilt ourselves and shame ourselves for it. Vern, it is something that you will know. You will know it in you. When you have to take action, you will know it in you. And for most of us, I'm going to say just about everybody here, for most of us, thank you so much, Rebecca, for being with us. The most important action that we need to do is to activate our 5th chakra. We've got to start speaking up. That is something that has been suppressed. We have been told, children are supposed to be seen and not heard. We need to activate a powerful chakra, because when we speak up in unison, when we commit to doing something together as a group, we are mighty. And the more, which is why do you think that they're doing all the suppression? The reason they want us to be silenced is because our voice is actually the most powerful tool that there is. Because one who says, no, that is not okay, I am not participating, I am not consenting, I am not doing that, I'm not taking this, I'm not taking that, is a voice that is sending a clear signal, because it sends a frequency that stops that which wants to overtake. And we have to use that chakra. And to get to the 5th chakra and to speak clearly, it needs to come through the 4th chakra, which is the heart. So that visceral knowingness that we're here from those first 3 chakras to embody an experience. We're here to be physical beings. When it is powered with love, we are receiving guidance directly from above that joins us at that place of love and clarity of who we are. And it comes out through that 5th chakra unimpeded. So it is a beautiful, wonderful, powerful question. We have to all engage in a level of action that is appropriate with what we are being guided to do. Not everybody is going to be given the same action, but the mind has to be cleared up enough so that you can hear your purpose. And it's not that it's some voice out there telling you what to do. It's that inside of us, like the oak tree is inside of an acorn, like a butterfly is inside of a caterpillar. Inside of us is what we are here to bring to the world, what we're here to fully embody. That can only come into fruition if we stop listening to the distractions of the egoic mind. So there is, most important action is to stop the insanity, stop the egoic lies and all the things that are happening at that level, and move into the heart space so that we can hear more clearly what is ours to do. And we do have a lot to do, because we're in the world of physicality where doing is part of the experience. We're just doing it with God, doing it with love, not doing it with the ego, because we want to get out of the karmic cycles of repetition. When we say no from God, it's not about blaming you. It's about letting you know that I want you to follow me in a new way. I want you to know that now is a time to do what we need to do from love and not fear. Let me just give a quick little example. I just saw in one of the headlines today that because we're actively now looking into where did this virus come from? Did it originate in these labs in Wuhan, China? And most of us who follow this stuff know that this has been talked about for over a year, and it's been suppressed because everything that is suppressed has truth in it. Otherwise, why would it be suppressed? If it's a lie, who would care? It would be proven it's a lie. Nobody would waste time. The only things that ever get suppressed are truths. So what I saw in the headline today or yesterday was that China is preparing for a nuclear attack because they don't like this idea that America is thinking that they've done something wrong. So let's look at this in terms of action from the ego standpoint. So China doesn't like that they've been blamed. So what are they going to do? Vindictiveness. Where is that? We're blaming them, and now they want to take revenge. Where does that keep us? In the density, the pendulum going to swing. If they shoot us, we're going to shoot them. Repeating the cycles. Insanity, doing the same thing, expecting a different result. So what would love do? Love would say, from a higher perspective, Mr. Chinese Communist Party president, I forget his name. Holy brother, you can do better than this. We don't need to resort to these immature games anymore. This is absolutely pure nonsense. We all know that this came from your place. So let's look at it. If you have nothing to hide, hide nothing. If you don't have anything to be worried about, then how about if we just go look at it and get it over with? And if you did not do something, then you'll be vindicated through the looking at the evidence. And if you did do something, we don't accept that anymore. And this is why we need a really strong leader who is not afraid to stand up. That is action. A leader who speaks is action. A leader who can put, even our own military could be put and said, if you attack here, we're going to be prepared to retaliate to you, not to your people, but to you. So you send your people to die on the battlefield, we'll send our people. What does that accomplish? A conversation that would be like that, where we were willing to do that, would be a powerful conversation. It is time for us to have it. Yes, you can have the military and say, well, we will have to retaliate, but we would prefer not to do it that way because that gets us nowhere. Let's come together and work through this. Same thing is happening with the election audits. This entire, humans are beginning to get smart enough. We're moving above the line. We're having the courage to go to neutrality and look at the nonsense that's happening. Anybody who's blocking an audit has something to hide. Why would you block something unless you knew that there was something you don't want others to see? So we're taking action to block progression. That's a lot of what's happening right now. And there are those who are taking action to move through it and move us forward. So I would like for you to take from this that we have to forgive ourselves for having created this insanity. We came to the planet of density. We all volunteered. Every one of us came in. No, there are no victims on this planet, even while we are paying attention to the human trafficking, to the wars, to the insanity that's happening, to the Clinton body list. Yes, a lot of people have lost their lives. We have got to get really clear that every one of us is a powerful creator creating an experience because we can. What is happening is just we're tired of the repetition, that insanity. Some of us don't want to be insane anymore. We want sanity. Not everybody wants to play at the high frequency of collaboration and cooperation, but we have to begin to show what that looks like for those who are willing to follow. We forgive ourselves for the insanity. We then begin to show another way. If you're called into action, follow the guidance, however that action looks for you. But in this human realm, action is part of the game. So I get it, Vern. I was in that spiritual, quote unquote, spiritual realm of, oh, I'm just not going to think about it and it's going to go away. Well, that we know that has a level of power, but it doesn't have the kind of power that is necessary to stop those who are taking action, to continue to pull humanity down into the density of the egoic controls, the egoic realm. So I want to open this up. Ran a little longer than we normally do. I want to open this up. Did you receive a nugget from this conversation? Did anything spark something that you could share with us so we can celebrate your expansion of awareness, but also maybe the nugget that we're looking for? So please share. Yes, Jody.
Oh, hey there. I just wanted to respond and talk about a little bit about what Vern said. I, a lot of it for me is like, do I need to take action? If I'm in my head or my ego, or then I realize it's usually the wrong time. And I've learned for me personally, if I have a sense of joy or like a burst of energy, especially like in that third chakra area, I'm like, yeah, it's time to take action. But it's so funny because I struggle with that. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I need to do this, or should I go do that? And it's just ego, because the ego loves to just get in there and then just, make me feel bad and then guilty. It's just its job. So, I really appreciate you bringing all that up, because it's something that I practice with daily, and okay, well, is this coming from love or is this coming from righteousness or whatever? So thank you for bringing that up, and thank you for having an amazing class. And yeah.
Well, thank you for those comments. And, the warriors for the light take action. And if you fed yourself, you took action today to stay in this space. If you turned on the Zoom, you took action to be part of this. If you vote, you take action. If you go to the hunting range, or not hunting range, shooting range, and you are practicing so that you can be as accurate as possible, should you have to use that's taking action. There's a lot of ways to take action. We have a lot of we have quite a few good hearted, loving, God loving politicians who are taking action by bringing things up and stepping up and saying, no, what you're saying is not okay, and pushing back. The pushing back is important, because we're pushing this energy, telling this energy, no, you have no power over us. Come to the light, come to the light. So thank you for sharing that, Jody. I don't know a single person that doesn't go through quite a while. I'm not going to say that has to be many, many years, but it is a process of shifting our idea of action, because so much of the actions that we have taken have always been self-defense. That those have been the actions that the ego takes as self-protection. And we are moving into defenselessness, because in defenselessness our safety lies. And in not needing to defend ourselves, we enter into an alignment with a source that is giving us exactly what to do to be able to bring more to the light. So we become examples, as Jesus was, as Martin Luther. That's why we talk about them, because they were beautiful examples. Who else would like to share? Just unmute yourselves and share any nuggets that you received today. And while you unmute yourselves, I'll remind you that June 21st, I'm going to start that 6-week Monday night Holy Relationships class so we can heal relationships with all kinds of things. So I'll put something out in writing for that in an email. Who else wants to unmute themselves? So glad that you're here, Dondra and John and Kathleen and Lorelei. Yes, Krista.
You know, I'm still recognizing that we are such a huge part of the rainbow nation of the galaxy, never mind planet Earth. And we're such individual sparks in the image of the type of image of that part of the God force. And we have our own individual stamp of who we are. That's all of our experiences in lifetimes. So when I know that I'm asking for guidance, every day I try and remind myself to make myself available to be a channel for the God force, for the Holy Spirit. And the more attuned I can listen to, turn left here, go right here, do this, do that. It's all in the sign of who I am. It's got nothing to do with what anybody else has achieved in their life. It's only got to do with the soul essence of who I am relative to all the other pieces that the God force is seeing on the chessboard and talking to the other players as well who are invoking guidance. And everything is just moving according to the guidance, divine guidance in perfect harmony. And I don't know what my neighbor's doing with the guidance. I know if I'm listening to my guidance, I'm not going to hit or bump into anybody I shouldn't bump into because I'm listening to my guidance and trust it. That's where the faith for me comes in. So, I'm thinking, I'm being reminded how powerful that I need to just remain loyal to my inner guidance and have faith that it will be the correct guidance based on all I've done in my life, up to this point in time.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that share. Yes, we are learning to, instead of being outer focus, we're coming inside to become inner focus so that we can be guided. And we're all going to be guided when we are all listening to the master, to source. We are being guided outward and onward, not into the same atrophy that goes nowhere, which is what the ego has taken us all into, such destruction and deception and devolution. So it's time to evolve and expand and keep going. Yes. We love you too, Miss Natalia. Anybody else? And then we'll wrap it up.
It's just, Laina, great class today. It seems like there's just so much going on that it's difficult to focus. It just seems like there's just so much going on. So this is helping to just kind of recenter and get me back inside. So thank you.
A great point. There is a lot of distractions because there's a lot more coming. And if we think we're distracted now, wait another week or 2 or 3 weeks, it's going to be so much more. And we need to learn how to stay inside. So practice it, whether it's through this class or when it's quiet at home at night or while you're, wherever, doesn't matter. We got to go inside and find the guidance that will get us out of this mess, because it's not going to come from the head. It's got to come from the heart, and the head in service to the heart. We're supposed to use our head in service. That doesn't go away. It's just no longer the master. Thank you so much. Well, thank you all so much for being here. And if you like this episode, share it with somebody that you think this might be eye-opening. Put it on your Facebook page or your social media. Let's help expand the conversation. This is a conversation of empowerment, of forgiveness, of assertion in the truth of who you are as a divine holy being. Don't be afraid or ashamed to share this. Let's get it out there. Sometimes our spiritualized ego, doesn't want to rock the boat. Fuck that. Go ahead and put out there what you're inspired to share. And let's have more people hear a message that speaks to their heart, because how else are we going to activate the truth inside of us? Most people are so afraid. We need to give them inspiration that it's okay to be assertive and still be loving. It's okay. Very, very much okay and needed at this time. So thank you all so much for being here, and we'll catch you next week. Love you all so much. Bye-bye. Unmute yourselves and say goodbye to each other.
Bye-bye, adios.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Love y'all. Thank you, Lina. Love you.
Bye. Love you guys.
Bye.
Thank you, Lina. Thank you.